Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Kardashev, Liminal Rite, out June 10th on Metal Blade Records. This album has 11 tracks, 1 hour in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. They are an American progressive death metal band, but you can categorize them in any other way you want. Their sound is very unique, it's very different, and that allows them to fit into a lot of different categories. Now this is a concept album, nothing new for the band, but I felt like they turned the concept idea and the delivery of that same concept all the way to 11. This album is emotionally charged and it's emotionally driven. It talks about looking into the past and living off of that past, almost not allowing you to better define what your future is going to be like. We're all guilty of that to a certain extent, some more, some less, but we all have had those experiences that we allow ourselves to move forward, but always chained to what came before, to the scars, to the emotions, to the challenges, to the journeys that we've taken behind us. They should help shape who we are, but not define who we will become. And this album is a little bit about that, and that allows the listener to better connect with the record because we all share those experiences. Like I said, we've all had those moments in our lives, and when you listen to an album that reflects somewhere where you've been or reflects somewhere where you currently are, it definitely becomes more of an open book and allows you to better understand what the band is trying to do, and it allows you to better engage yourself with the record and stay engaged with it throughout the duration of that same record. Now, this is an album that could be approached by two different parameters or by two different perspectives, starting points, if you will. You can take the singles out, you can take the songs out as singles and enjoy them because they have all the power, all the tools, all the necessary shapes to really be on their own. They don't need the songs that came before, they don't need the songs that come after. They live within their own walls, they live within their own parameters. But if you decide to listen to this record from start to finish, other doors open. The perspective slightly changes in terms of what the whole record is all about. Think about this album in a sports analogy. You could have the highlight reel of a game, and that gives you the key moments. Look at that as being the singles, the individual tracks on the record. Or you can watch the game from start to finish and see all the different nuances, the changes in the scoreboard, who was on top, who came back to win the game, who was the best player, who was the weaker player. All of those things can only be really clear to you if you enjoy it from start to finish. If you just take the highlight reel, you're just getting the best moments out of the game. This album is a little bit like that. You can go at it from a highlight reel perspective, or you can go at it from a full experience from start to finish, seeing what they did as far as connecting those tracks, those single tracks, with interludes that work really well, like spoken word interludes that help you understand not just where you're going, but where you were. The concept of the album really comes alive during those interludes, and they help define what this album is all about. They open doors. They open doors into what the essence of the record is, what the ideas behind the album were. It opens doors in terms of you better connecting with the concept, and therefore better connecting with the music all around. So I like this album because of the flexibility that it offers. It will impact listeners differently depending on which approach you take, but all around you can't go wrong when you build a concept album that still delivers the goods, even if you're enjoying the record outside of the overall concept that it has. Now, as far as soundscape is concerned, this album has a great sound because it has a lot of layers. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of texture within the soundscape, but it's not an album that's hard to appreciate. It's not an album that it becomes difficult to peel those layers, and sometimes those layers are kind of stuck together and it's hard to tell what one element is doing versus the other element. The sound quality on this album really allows you to appreciate everything that it has. It's coming at you with great definition. The sound is really well defined in its parameters, where it starts, where it finishes, not cross-pathing, not interfering with one another. The drums don't interfere with the guitars don't interfere with the bass doesn't interfere with the drums. Everything has its moment, everything has its place. Understanding where your place is and how far you can go without really damaging those around you is the key in order to create an album that is this big, that has this big volume, this sound that feels larger than life, that is always expanding, that has this heartbeat to it. When you listen to the record, the sound feels like a heartbeat because it expands and it contracts from song to song and within songs themselves. It becomes a living organism. This album is a living organism in the musical format. Absolutely phenomenal quality from start to finish. And then you have some elements that you expected them to be great, and then you have some elements that added nuances that you were not necessarily expecting coming in. The drums are phenomenal, the guitars are phenomenal. I don't want to spend too much time on those two because I was expecting them to be phenomenal coming in, and they were. They delivered. The drums have a great earthy sound. They feel really big, powerful, not hollow. They have substance within them. It's not just about being heavy. It's not just about propelling the sound forward, but it's having something within that sound. Same thing could be said for the guitars. Very melodic, heavy, creating ebbs and flows, creating ups and downs, changing the eyesight of the listener, helping you better navigate yourself within individual songs and from song to song. But then there's two elements that I wasn't expecting them to have the impact that they had, and that kind of surprised me. One is the atmospheric portion of the album, and the other is the bass. I want to start with the atmospheric portion of this record. When you're creating a concept album like this, the atmosphere that comes from the sound, or that permeates from the sound, is extremely important. It has to create a visual. The music is helping to define what that visual is all about, but the atmosphere is really what gives shapes to that same visual. And I feel like this album did that. It offered that across every single song. You feel the record. You're not just listening to it. You could almost touch it. And the atmosphere of the album is what allows you to have that sensation, allows you to have that experience. It elevates the quality of the record all around. The bass, on the other hand, I was expecting the bass to have perhaps a little bit less of a role, but I think there was still room for the bass to have a bigger role. When the bass pops on this album, it really pops, and it gives it a very unique style, a very unique definition. You look at a song like Silvered Shadows, that's a track that really uses the bass well in order to create movement, in order to help the guitars feel a little bit more compact, but still connect that guitar sound to the drums. And I wanted more of that. In my opinion, they used it, they didn't abuse it, but they could have abused it ever so slightly. This record had room for more bass, and I feel like this is a band that could really elevate the experience of their sound, elevate the quality of their sound if they include more bass in the mix. Give it more of a predominant role, not in every song, but a little bit more throughout the record. Give me some breadcrumbs, a little bit in the beginning, a little bit in the middle, a little bit towards the end. Guide me ever so slightly with that light at the end of the tunnel, flickering on and off, and let the bass be that light at the end of the tunnel. This is a band that could really use that portion of their arsenal to create an even bigger, better sounding album all around. Now, as far as vocals are concerned, the dynamic range is out of this world, is off the charts. The cleans are haunting. That's where you can start. That's the basement. The clean vocals feel very haunting. They feel very haunting within the tracks. They feel very haunting when you have the spoken word, which piggybacks off of those cleans in order to give you a more direct point of view and to guide you throughout the journey of listening to this record and the journey of the concept of the album itself. So that really sets the bar low. Then as you start to move towards more of the harsh, more of the brutal style vocals, you see the aggression, you see the heaviness come to life, you see the brutality, the dark side of the album, because this album feels dark on both spectrums, because when you have the clean vocals, the haunting aspect of them is still very dark. It still has a dark nature to it. But once you move into the harsh vocals, the darkness of those harsh vocals are not less darker. So the darkness is there. It's just coming at you from different angles. And that is a really interesting point as far as vocals are concerned for this album, because it doesn't matter what you're getting. It doesn't matter where you are within the range. The perception of darkness, the perception of emptiness is there all the time. Beautiful delivery, beautifully done across every single track. Now, this is a phenomenal record. It's their second album. They have a few EPs in between records, so they're a band that understands their music, what they want, and works on it in order to deliver the exact package, the exact style, the exact approach that they want in terms for the fans to not just connect with their music and feel connected with it, but also see a gradual movement, a gradual growth from release to release. This album definitely steps up from what we've seen before. And it's not just one step up, it's a leap forward and upwards. This is a very well done record all around. It's a very mature album. an album that doesn't feel like the second full-length record. It feels more like the 10th full-length record, an album that shows almost that you've learned from the past, you learned from the mistakes, you know exactly what you want, and you finally have all the right elements in the right place to deliver that end result. So it feels more mature than what it is. It doesn't feel, like I said, like a second full-length record. It feels more like a 10th full-length record. There's not many bands that reach this point of their career and release an album as complete as this one is. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Silvered Shadows. A mixtures of heaviness and atmosphere are really the calling cards of this song. Outstanding bass and guitar together. The parameters of those two really define moments within this track. And then you have very powerful drums as well, in providing a powerful vocal range on top of it. Everything about this song is powerful. Everything about this song is driven, is textured, is layered. There's a lot for you to peel when you're listening to this track. There's a lot of movement within this track. It's a shapeless song. It doesn't feel like it offers you a sense of guidance in terms of knowing where you are and what's coming next. You don't know what's coming next because the track is always morphing. It's always evolving. It has great moments. It has a melodic bridge that really drops the mood, that allows you to sink into this pit before you can be rescued and be brought back up again to life. So it's a heartbeat of a track. It's a song that feels like it has a heart and soul. It has that style. It has that approach. It's always evolving. It's always growing. Next you have Lavender Calligraphy. It's a song that has a beautiful opening. The opening to this track really lingers. It has a beautiful aroma. It just allows you to ease yourself into the song. And then the harsh vocals break through that veil, break through that aroma, and makes the song feel bigger. It gives volume, it gives presence to the track. The clean vocals, when they come in, the song musically changes. It's almost like it's heavier in sound when the vocals are clean. It's more melodic in sound when the vocals are harsh. That's kind of the dynamic at the beginning. Eventually those worlds collide, or they come together, they merge, maybe that's a better word, they merge as one, and the song feels more complete. It feels that it's coming together, and you see a sense of progression from start to finish, leading you into that very narrow path. Last but not least, Cellar of Ghosts, my favorite song on this whole album. The clean vocals are haunting. Let me start off by saying that. The harsh vocals are demonic. You have the bottom and you have the high. You have the two extremes. Now when you have vocals, clean vocals that sound very haunting, and you have harsh vocals that sound demonic, here you are. You have that darkness across both spectrums, just coming from two different places with two different styles, with two different deliveries. But what you get out of them is exactly the same from an emotional perspective. The sound is very welcoming, and that was something that was really strange to me, because when I was listening to this song, it doesn't feel like the sound should be welcoming. It feels like the sound should actually be pushing you away from it. It doesn't want you nearby, but at the same time, that darkness that permeates through it just wants to embrace you, wants to bring you into the fold. So it's a track that makes you feel different from what it sounds, or it sounds different from how you feel towards it, regardless of how you look at it. It has that kind of yin and yang ability to it that makes you want to come back to it again. It just has this captivating emotion that drips through every single pore of this song. It's, in my opinion, the best track on the album because of it. I'm not saying that I didn't connect it with the other songs emotionally, I did, but there was something about this track, from the way it sounds, the way the vocals come across, the way it makes me feel, the way it makes me feel like I shouldn't be feeling that way. There's no other track that creates that sort of internal volatility within the listener as this one does. This is it. Kardashev with Liminal Rite, out June 10th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.